All right, so this is our BA 436 Group 1 project by Taylor Anderson, me, Chris Pease, and Nathan Wild.
All right, so I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about the data that we collected and why we collected it. So for our data collection, we first collected our own data, and then we also used data from groups 2 and 4. And from there, we have 3 different hypotheses that question and regard the collected and cleaned data. And then from there, we came up with 3 different research questions regarding the hypotheses. And so we collected this data from a bunch of different cities, and then we excluded certain cities that did not contain enough job postings related to business analytics. Next slide, please. So here is a list of all the cities that we initially pulled before we cleaned and trimmed our data. And then as you can see here, there are some highlighted cities, and those are the cities that we decided to exclude, just because, like I said, they didn't have enough job postings in the business analytics field in order for them to be considered viable and accurate data. So now I'm going to pass it on and talk about the first hypothesis.
So for the first hypothesis, we wanted to know, does the number of job postings correlate with the average salary among selected cities? The reason we really wanted to go into this is to see if this could apply to our future job positions that are within our data set. So for us on the next slide, we gathered our results and our interpretations. So as you can see on the graphs, these will show the results of the correlations. And then on when it comes to interpreting these results, we can see also that for the p-value, it is at 0.3497, which is actually greater than 5%, making it insignificant. We can conclude from that also from the empirical evidence that the correlation is not significant. And from here, what we can see is that if you are moving to one of the cities that we have covered, you should not use the job postings as an indicator for your average salary. And then on the next slide, we're going to talk about hypothesis 2.
So for hypothesis 2, our question was, does the selected Republican cities in our data correlate with the percentage change in salary, which is the difference between salary to the adjusted cost of living salary? And so in order to understand which cities and or the state that they're in were Republican or Democratic states, we needed to make sure this by checking their numbers in the House of Representatives and the Senate, because those two parties are the main factors of how they make the laws in the states regarding taxes. And so then basically we wanted to use this information to see which cities would be more preferable destinations when starting our careers. And then for the next slide, with our hypothesis 2 results and interpretation, our graph showed the adjusted differences between the salaries with Republicans and Democratic states and cities. And so our p-value is really low at a 0.0013, and we had a very low correlation of negative 0.07300. And so then basically we found that there was a correlation between the difference between salary and the adjusted salary.
So for hypothesis number 2, research question 1, we went over 4 cities, which are Atlanta, Georgia, Long Beach, California, New York, and Dallas, Texas. We wanted to see which one had the highest salary percent change from salary to adjusted salary. The reason for this is we wanted to find out by comparing 2 Republican and 2 Democrat cities, which would be the highest, mainly to discover which city of the 4 is not preferable to move based on our data set. Moving on to the hypothesis 2, research question 1, results and interpretations. We found that Long Beach, California has the highest percent change at 40%. What we can conclude is that if you had to choose between the 4 cities, you should not choose Long Beach, California if you were strictly looking at a percent change in salary. Moving on to hypothesis number 2, research question 2. We wanted to see if there was a correlation between percent change in average salary and annual average rent. Our group was curious about this because we wanted to see how significant annual average rent played a role in percent change in average salary. Moving on to our results, you can see the scatter plot shows the correlation, but to further this, we can look at our p-value. Since our p-value is significant at a 1% level, we can show that there is empirical evidence of a correlation. The correlation is at 0.856, which shows a strong positive correlation between our two variables. As for the interpretation, we can interpret from this that there is a significant correlation. So when looking for a business analyst job within the cities in our data set, you should research the average rent costs within the area before moving. Moving on to our next slide, hypothesis 3.
So for hypothesis 3, our question states, does a bachelor's degree increase average salary? Our group wanted to see if having a bachelor's degree would make a significant change in salary, because since we are all about to graduate, we wanted to make sure getting our degree would improve our chances for a higher salary. And as you can see on the next slide, we will be going over the results. So to the right of the slide, the bar chart shows how bachelor's does affect business analytical salary. The 0 stands for no bachelor's, and the 1 stands for bachelor's. And you can see that it's a significant difference. Our p-value shows that there's a significance at the 1% level. And our equation below states the average salary equals 2,651 times bachelor's required plus 66,501. From our R-squared, we could see that it is low, which is indicating a 0.26% variation. So on the next slide, we talk about hypothesis 3 interpretation. What we can conclude from this is, as college students, is that a bachelor's degree will have a slight impact on business analytical salaries. We can take this information and revitalize our resumes by not focusing as much as on our degree, but rather than the achievements and the work experience to further our careers. And then on the next slide, we will be talking about hypothesis 3, research question 1.
So for this hypothesis, our question was, does a bachelor's degree have a significant correlation with average salary? So basically our group, we wanted to test the correlation to see, if there's a strong relationship or how significant the relationship is between those two variables. And so then on the next slide, it talks about our results and how to interpret them. So we found out that there's a 0.00004, which is a very low p-value at the significance of a 1% level. And then the correlation we found was that it was at a 0.05096, which shows that there is a slight positive correlation. And so then this can help show that a bachelor's degree will have a slight impact on our salaries once we graduate from college.
So for our overview, looking back over at hypothesis 1, we can see that when looking at a new location, the amount of job postings should not really be a factor when looking at our data set. As for hypothesis 2, we learned that Republican cities within our data set would have a lower % decrease in salary after factoring in adjusted cost of living. Therefore, you should move to a Republican area if salary is a big factor. Hypothesis number 2, research question number 1, is just simply avoid Long Beach, California if salary again is an important factor. Hypothesis number 2, research question 2, it goes over that right cost is a significant correlation affecting salary. So again, look over that, or whenever you're moving to a city within our data set, make sure to look at the average rent. Hypothesis 3, we found that a bachelor's degree affects salary only slightly. So make sure when you're looking at your resume, don't think that your bachelor's is going to increase is going to be significantly correlated. So focus on more of achievements. Hypothesis number 3, question number 1, is that we learned that there was a small correlation, but it did not impact the two variables too much. And that again is the bachelor's degree with correlation. And then that would be it for our overview.
And so here are our different sources. Basically, we use these to find the average rent by state, and then we use the income tax calculator to estimate the approximate taxes to help find the adjusted salary, as well as the median household income to help bring a rounded value to that, and then Ballotpedia to help figure out cities that were Republican or Democrat. And so that will round off Group 1's BA 436 presentation, and I thank you for listening.